It feels so different right now, doesn't it? The space, the quiet, the forced isolation. But you know, they're still here. The things that give us hope, solace, sustenance, and joy. And when Cork wakes from this deep slumber and comes alive with our chat and our laughter and our shouts, I'll tell you, it'll be pure brilliant.
This week is Positive Ageing Week, and on Thursday, October the 1st, we celebrate International Day of Older People. Now more than ever, we recognise that older people may be anxious about the future. In association with Cork County Older People's Council, we have brought together a range of people to give practical advice to older people as we embrace the autumn. We hope you enjoy this webinar, and as Mayor of County Cork, I encourage you to share it with your family and friends far and wide. Let me introduce you to your host, former TV presenter and wellness advocate, Bibi Baskin.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, hello everybody, and you're very welcome indeed to join us today. I personally am delighted to be here because, of course, as you know, it's Positive Ageing Week. And what a great outlook that is, to be positive about ageing, the one thing we can't change. And of course, today also is International Day of Older People. We have lots of topics to discuss, which I'm sure will interest you, and they interest me too. And we're going to start with the topic of how to embrace the autumn. What could that mean? Could it mean rediscovering earlier interests, taking on new interests? I don't know, but I have two people joining me now who do. Delighted to welcome Jim Murphy from Cork County Older People's Council and Rachel Burke from the Cork County Library Services. Rachel and Jim, you're very welcome indeed. Now, Jim, I mentioned there about taking on new interests or reviving old interests. How do you feel about taking on new interests?
I'm always interested in doing something new. When I officially retired from a job 15 years ago, I found the first thing I realised after a few years, how did I have time to work? There were so many interesting, I like meeting people. I'm involved in the local community, historical society, museum, men's shed. So there's plenty to be active about.
How did you find time to do all of that?
Yeah, you make time. You make time.
You must have been wait now, Jim, you must have been a nightmare in the house because you were out all the time.
Yeah, that's true. My wife.
Are you still out all the time?
Yeah. I am. Yeah, well, obviously, curtailed now. I really missed men's shed since the shutdown, and I know a lot of people did. It wasn't some of the work, and we went on tour, but just a cup of coffee, have a chat, and discuss things with all old stories, ideas, people from different stratas of society, from professional people down to someone who worked as a farm labourer. We all had a common sense of togetherness in men's shed and go over little projects and that.
That's very important, isn't it, for mental health, Jim, the whole notion of togetherness?
It is, yes. And I feel the whole idea of mental health is vitally important. And or mental health, mental activity, to keep active. You know, there's so many things, no matter what, people at certain age or ailments, or our age, they may not be able to do the physical exercise or activity to a major extent, and some may be nervous that they may fall.
Yes,
so
indeed.
There is lots and lots of opportunities to keep the mind active, which will be vitally important as we grow older.
And one of those, Rachel, I know what you're going to tell me. What can we do to keep the mind active, in your view and from your background?
Well, I suppose the library in normal times would always offer lots of those opportunities like Jim spoke about for togetherness for people of all ages, and we would in practice see a lot of people when they begin their retirement, like you spoke of, Jim, they often, one of the first things they do is they come and they join the library, or if they're taking up a new hobby, maybe they need to get a little bit more information about that, or it might be something they've always wanted to do. So it could be maybe a practical how-to guide about something, or, you know, in pre-COVID times, we would have had a lot of kind of peer-to-peer IT support for people who are maybe trying to get more to connect with people and relatives that they had abroad, and use the IT services in the library for that.
Rachel, just on that note, because I in particular have a great interest in social media,
yes,
as some people will know, and I find, you know, I'm an older girl myself, but I find it's great company. But from your experience within the library and the IT services that you provide, as older people, how many of us are really clued into IT?
It would be, it's not surprising to find that a lot of people, when they've retired, they come in with their tablet, and they come in with their device, and they ask you for the Wi-Fi code, or they ask you about, I believe you can download your ebooks and your audiobooks, and I'd like to do that. Or if people, like you said, want to do something outdoors and be active, sometimes they want to listen to an audiobook. Yeah. You know, sometimes they don't want that at all. They want to know, how do I set up my email, because I want to be able to email my family who are abroad, or I want to be able to, you know, do something practical like that.
And do you provide that service? You'll actually show them all how to do that?
Well, in normal times, the staff would do their best to show people, but I know in some of our branches, like in Carrigaline, for example, they had a setup whereby retired people were mentoring other retired people. So people with a high level of proficiency in IT were showing their peers how to do it, and I think people felt a little bit more comfortable with that, you know. But a lot of the time, it's people just having more free time to read for pleasure, and, you know, they would be you know, just borrowing fiction, the latest thriller, or they want to go back and read something that they've read years ago. But certainly people, when they enter retirement, they form a very big part of the customers at our libraries.
And is there a cost?
No, absolutely not.
It's all free.
Everything in your local library is free, and that applies to libraries all across the country. So, and I think probably one of the biggest changes that has benefited people most in the library service is that you can use any library. So you could borrow a book from Dublin and you could return it in Passage West, or you can request a book and it'll come from anywhere in the country, and that's all free as well. So people, if they do take up a very obscure hobby in retirement, and there might not be a book on that topic in their local library, they can request it either themselves online, or they can pop into their branch, and that will be delivered to their local either mobile library or static library.
And tell me something, Rachel, because I remember from when I was a child and I was a great library goer. I've since managed to buy a few books along the way, I mean stacks of them, but I still love libraries and I love the feel of them. But in those days, there used to be a fine if you didn't bring the library book back on time. There was a stamp put on it. Are you still at that?
No, the library fines were eliminated as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most progressive moves we made. I think a lot of people were saying, but how will you ever get your books back, you know, if there isn't that threat? We've actually seen in practice it's the opposite, and it often was older people who worried about their book. You know, they might say, I only have a spin into town on a Thursday, and if I don't get back, I'll be really worried about my book being late. And that put people off borrowing. And now that I suppose, that worry has been taken away, they're far more inclined to borrow up to the limit. I mean, they can borrow up to 12 books at a time if they want.
Oh,
you
my
know.
goodness.
Yes, I know.
They would have a very tough, not yet read list in that
Your
case.
TBR pile.
Yeah.
TBR.
Your to-be-read pile, yes, that's a...
How many are in your TBR pile?
I wouldn't like to disclose that.
And you wouldn't like to ask me either, would you? 'Cause
No, but they're in a very neat pile next to the bed. They're in a very neat pile, yeah. As you can imagine,
I can indeed.
The libraries are constantly getting new books all the time, you know, and as we saw during lockdown when we operated our housebound service, people went back to reading authors then from years ago as well, because that's the good thing about the library. It has a very big back catalogue. I mean, anyone can buy the latest bestseller inside in their local bookshop. Sure. But I suppose if you want to go and read the back catalogue of any, you know,
you can do that.
We
Jim,
keep them all in stores.
Let me come back to you for a minute, though. Reading is a great activity, obviously, anytime, but especially if you're housebound.
Yeah.
What other things do you think? For example, keeping in touch with people, because you mentioned at the start there togetherness, the importance of togetherness that the sheds gave you. Communication and keeping in touch?
Yeah, there's quite a bit, and linking with the library, you have with access to archives, genealogy. You know, most people would like, God, I don't know what happened, that grand-aunt of ours that emigrated to the States 20 years ago. So
you might be better off not knowing it.
I might have,
but we won't go there.
No, but it's like that genealogy, telling the stories. I always use that. Someone had some minister of education in the 30s had a vision, Duca's folklore project. He got each primary school, asked the kids in the school to do a little story, have a chat with their parents or the grandparents. And I know the convent in Passage West gave guidelines that you must speak to someone over 60.
Over 60?
You asked over 60.
Project.
And you were going back then another 2 generations perhaps. You had stories on cures.
Oh, yeah.
All cures, all fish ogs and stories, ghost stories were very popular, and local history. And there's a wealth to that there. And I feel that, you know, our generation, we got the milk delivered to the door in a churn. Now, it was the age of a battery radio, and you couldn't far cry from the social media you say today and equipment. Now, an older person that could be active for the mind, start thinking
they
about
could do that. And they could tell their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And they can do that because I think a lot of those stories and old blessings and even curses, they all ended up in the Irish Folklore Commission in UCD. And indeed, for my postgrad, I had an association with those stories. I didn't create them, but now we could have that cycle going again.
Yes, yeah.
Jim, that is a brilliant idea.
It is. And you look at the cycle of change and the degree of change from our perspective and from the kids, they think, with, you know, so there's in the last even 10, 15 years, the change in technology and the whole social media is massive. And I think that's where older people will love, and to get them active thinking.
Get them active thinking.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going to leave it for now. Active thinking. Keep in touch with the grandchildren. Everybody wants to. Tell them all your old stories of your own childhood. Keep the togetherness idea going, and join your local library. It's free.
It's all free.
Rachel and Jim, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now, there you go. Some good ideas to get us all thinking and moving in our minds, at least for the moment. That could change. We might add something to it. Well, now, I'm delighted to welcome Tim Lucy, Chief Executive of Cork County Council. And Tim is going to talk about the age-friendly services that the council make available.
Thank you, Bibi. That was really uplifting, what we've just heard from Rachel. In particular, in the way we've changed our model around our library services to facilitate and to help the elderly and the vulnerable citizens. And that's happened across all of our entire organisation. We've done everything we possibly could to respond to the needs of community during this most recent period. And, you know, within the organisation, there's very much a culture of responsibility, of community support, community service. It's in our own heart and in everybody's heart inside the place. And we place an ever-increasing value then on our relationship with the Age-Friendly Alliance and the Older People's Council, who really shape what we can do. We listen to them, and they in particular have got us to focus on, I suppose, the health and well-being aspect of our capacity to deliver services to the older people and the most vulnerable across this society. It's also, I suppose, been the hallmark of the manner in which we led the community support programme, the multi-agency, up to 30 agencies, voluntary sector, etc., being there to respond to any particular request of anybody who felt isolated or cocooned or alone at any period of time. You'll all be aware of those listening, those type of supports, whether it was simply to get your shopping, simply to walk the dog, simply just to talk to somebody. And in this period, no one should feel alone. No one should be afraid just to reach out to that helpline, which continues to operate, which is available. And indeed, until we come through this period together, we will continue to offer that service. We sincerely hope also, Bibi, I suppose, that look, this production this morning in the context of what we've heard already and what's to come in this will be of extreme value to those who tune in and listen. And so, thank you, Bibi, and over to you.
Well, our second paneler here today, and now we're ready to talk about how to be winter ready. I think you'll all agree we could do with some practical advice on the subject. We're about to get it from the HSE, the Gardaí, and from Cork County Fire Services. Our speakers in the segment today are Inspector Ian O'Callaghan from An Garda Síochána, Eleanor Moore from the HSE, and Mark Sinclair, the Station Officer at Cork County Fire Services. Well, you're all very welcome indeed.
Thank you.
Ian, if I could ask you, what do you think is the level of anxiety at the moment amongst the older folk?
It's certainly, I suppose, people are worried without question. And I know from where I'm stationed in Bantry, and we cover a massive rural area, from talking to our community guards who are out every day, speaking to people living in isolated and in vulnerable areas, that there's anxiety and worry about, I suppose, the winter coming on. However, since March and April, we have been working with our local stakeholders in the community support programme. We've been doing our best with the local community alert groups as well, and the local GA clubs, for example, around the Bantry Garda district area, and replicated throughout Cork County, in fact, have been doing their utmost to reach out to people and ensure they have the proper supports there. But there is worry.
If we look, just for a minute, you mentioned community alert systems there.
Yes.
And every time we're driving through rural Ireland, which I personally love, you see this community alert sign and you think, oh, that's great. Is it working at the moment?
It is working, and certainly over the last 10 years, the likes of burglary figures and theft incidents have reduced. And again, recent figures for this year have shown that burglary figures in particular are reducing. And certainly in West Cork, we have nearly 80 community alert groups which tie in with local liaison guards, and we meet regularly. And even during the pandemic, we have been doing regular teleconferences with officers in our local community alert groups to try and identify who is vulnerable in the local parishes and to try and ensure that they're not forgotten about, and that we can even do visits ourselves to ensure that they have the right support, such as simple things like, is the pension being collected okay, security supports in relation to crime prevention advice, and even indeed simple things like getting the messages to ensure that somebody is doing the deliveries once a week at least for them.
It's very reassuring, I think, to hear you tell us that the burglary numbers are down.
It is.
It's a big fear for a lot of people living in isolation, and some of them even living alone, and similarly for those who are frail and not very physically strong.
It is, and it's important here today to reassure everybody who's viewing that crime in Cork County has reduced substantially, as I said, over the last 10 years. It's very unusual that a serious crime like an aggravated burglary will happen in your home. In fact, your home is most vulnerable when you're not there. And what we've seen during the COVID pandemic is that a lot of people have been at home and working from home, and I suppose are more susceptible and maybe a little bit of anxiety in going out. So criminals are aware of that. And technology has improved, such as text alert. People have mobile phones now. If they see suspicious activity, they ring Garda stations. We've CCTV in so many communities like Bantry and Scull, for example, where I'm attached to. And that all is playing its part. And people are brilliant for ringing in if they see something suspicious. And people are really excellent for keeping an eye on their vulnerable neighbours, and particularly those who live on their own.
Well, that is lovely to hear, because in many ways, although I'm sure it's global, but I think we Irish are very good at being kind to the neighbour and to looking out for each other.
We are. And certainly this year, I think we've seen the true Irishness exemplified with the way everybody has got behind each other and looked out for their neighbours. Mostly, yes.
A few old rogues out there still, we have to be careful.
There is, but the vast majority overall, it's been very empowering to see it.
It is lovely to see it. Eleanor, on a different subject, but also I feel a very important one, what about the flu vaccine? Apparently it's going to become available very soon, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. The flu campaign is going to start in the first 2 weeks of October.
And we're in that now.
We're in that now, exactly. So we will be encouraging everybody over the age of 65 to go and get the flu vaccine. It's free. You can go to your GP or pharmacy in order to get the flu vaccine.
Is that the process, Eleanor?
Yeah.
Do I just ring up or go to the local pharmacy and say what? I want an appointment?
You ring up your GP to make an appointment to go and get the flu vaccine, and with any of the COVID, practicalities at the moment, your GP will talk you through how you will get to the surgery, etc., etc. It's the same with the pharmacy. You can go in and talk to them. And they will talk you through the process in relation to getting the flu vaccine. If you're online, there is an online system to go through with the pharmacies as well. But your first protocol would always be your GP. Talk to your GP about it.
Now,
it's free.
May I ask you about that? I would expect for people who have a medical card, of course it would be free.
Yes.
But what if you don't have a medical card, yet you're in an older age group? Is it still free?
If you have an underlying condition, any kind of underlying health condition, it is free for you. If you're over 65, it's free for you. Whether whether you have your medical card or not, you might have a GP card that you can go and visit your GP with. So it is free. And again, I would talk to your GP in relation to that.
But the message from the HSE is go get it.
Yes, and to reassure everyone, go and get it. It will protect you from the flu. The flu is, can really make you ill. So our message to you is go and get it, yeah.
Okay. Mark, what about fire safety? What would be the one singular thing, or is there one singular thing that you would advise us to look out for?
I think the most important thing is smoke alarm. A working smoke alarm in a house is an absolute vital piece of equipment. Unfortunately, statistics would show that it's elderly people living on their own usually, unfortunately, would pass away in a fire because they've nothing to alert them. So a working smoke alarm that is checked weekly and an escape plan out of the house as well.
Now, when you say checked weekly, who does that, or how do we do it?
Okay. A smoke alarm is usually kept up high. You can get the handle of a brush and push it with the handle of a brush, and that will do it for you. We wouldn't want anyone standing up in chairs or anything to check
No, we don't want that.
But yes, a handle of a brush will check it. Once you push it, it should beep and will let you know it's working. Once it beeps, it's a working smoke alarm.
Now, would I be right in thinking, because this is my own practical experience, nobody follow it, but in the summer when the evenings are bright, we tend to forget about the value and importance of smoke alarms.
We do.
We go to bed and it's still bright. Would that be right?
Weekly. What I call a Tuesday is Test It Tuesday. Tuesday is my day for testing the smoke alarms. So that's what day is today. It's Test It Tuesday. So.
Well, we're not quite bang on the button. So for the moment, we'll do it Test It Thursday because it's Positive Aging Week, and today is a special day, the International Day of Older People. But then we'll do it again next Tuesday.
Yeah,
we'll test it on Tuesday as well.
Tuesday or Thursday, whatever day begins with a
T in the week.
And that could be today even.
Well, you know what? That's an even better idea.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Test it now, yeah.
Do it now,
yeah. It is no harm.
Ian, going back to you for a moment, online theft of identity, of bank accounts, scamming, phishing. We hear about it certainly among younger people. Is that a thing with older folk as well?
It is, Bibi, and we have noticed it year on year. That is a type of crime that is indeed increasing. And I'd appeal to everybody, and certainly older persons can be more, I suppose, susceptible to this type of crime because they're more trusting in nature. And I'd appeal to anybody who's viewing today to take stock of anybody who's receiving a cold call. It might be a telephone call, a mobile call, via an email, or indeed somebody calling to their door. A lot of it is down to trying to extract your bank account details. And indeed, a friend of mine recently only got caught out recently through an SMS message who he thought it was from his bank account. And he said there was, the bank were proclaiming that there was going to be a transaction going to occur very quickly unless he logged on to his bank account via his mobile phone, because he banked online. And when he went into his particular bank account, it looked real. And that's what's so professional about these type of criminals who work this way. And he gave his bank account details, thinking it to be the correct online bank account. So I suppose it's just to take stock if someone is ringing you saying there's a problem, or you're even due a refund or a rebate for anything. It's to stop. And the lesson is, if they ask for your bank account details, that should be a big red flag.
Never give that.
Never give it out.
I think years ago, with the older age group, if the fella called to the door, which was the way of doing it then, you might notice, as we used to say, the cut of him, you know, that he didn't look too real, or he didn't look right. There was something about him, my mother would have described it.
Yes.
With online, of course, all of that is gone.
It's all gone, and it's so professional, and people are full-time at it, and they've honed their skills in relation to how to manipulate and dupe people and lull them into a false sense of security. And it's just to be extremely careful, because certainly, as I said, older persons are more susceptible to this type of crime, and particularly persons who are living on their own, because they mightn't have someone to bounce. Do you know what? I've someone on the phone to me here, and what do you think? So it really is to be very careful. Like, a reputable institution won't go about their business that way.
No, no chance. But you can be taken in.
You can,
There's
and
no
it does
doubt.
happen, yes.
Eleanor, we have to talk about masks as well. And I know you don't have a medical background, but still in all, from the HSE, what is the HSE telling us to do about wearing masks?
You need to wear them, and you need
to wear them.
You need to
Will
wear
I
them
repeat
when you're
that
out.
Again?
You do.
You need to wear your mask.
You need to wear
I'm
your
starting
mask.
to sound like Joe Duffy. Wash your hands, wash your hands. Well, wear your mask, wear your mask.
Wear your mask when you're out in public spaces, and you cannot socially distance 2 meters or 6.5 feet. You really do need to be wearing your mask. You do need to be wearing your mask when you go to the shops to do your groceries, your messages, that kind of thing. You do if you're going into the pharmacy, if you're going into the supermarket, any type of shop, your bank, your post office to collect your pension or anything like that. You do need to be wearing your mask. And I suppose what the other thing is, you do need to be wearing it correctly, so it kind of covers your nose, your mouth and your chin, and try to put it on with the string. And I know people wear glasses and people talk about it, it's very uncomfortable and it fogs up. So my suggestion, because I do wear glasses as well, is put the mask on first and put your glasses over it and pinch it in at your nose to make sure that it kind of comes in here so the condensation isn't rising.
Okay, so we take the glasses off.
That's my trick.
Then we put the mask on.
Put your glasses back on.
Make sure it's nice and snug in around the nose.
Yeah.
And then we put the glasses back on.
Because then your glasses are over your mask.
So no condensation.
Well, hopefully you have to measure your breathing. But yeah, that's my trick to doing it anyway, when I'm putting my glasses on with the mask. You have to wear your mask even indoors if you're in an indoor situation and you're meeting people. And again, you can't socially distance that 2 meters or 6.5 feet. You do need to be wearing the mask. I know they're uncomfortable. I know we all get sweaty in under them. But they are saving our lives, and they are a way of us not contracting the virus, which is out in the open air.
It's very sound advice, and it's very necessary.
Yeah.
Mark, just before we leave this segment, what about the practical business of this smoke alarm that I know you consider to be most important? Do you give them for free? Do you test them for free? Do you fit them?
Yes, Cork County Council, we go to a lot of these active age elderly groups, where we give presentations on fire safety. And for anybody that doesn't have a smoke alarm, Cork County Council Fire Service actually provide the smoke alarm. Unfortunately, we don't fit them, but the active groups have volunteers then who, I think Eleanor was saying, are Garda vetted and everything. They go and
that's the care and repair service
that's the care
from
Age
Action. They'll do that. And would you test it for free?
Yes. Well, we work on a retained system, so we don't work full-time on the job. No. We work on a pager. But when we're out at a fire, we could be called to a chimney fire or even an ambulance assist to help ambulance paramedics lifting people or whatever. When we're in houses, we always would say, yeah, we'll check the smoke alarm for you, especially if they can't reach it themselves, and if they need the handle of a brush to reach it. We were at a chimney fire there a couple of months back now, it would have been before the summer, where it was a big house. And like that, we checked the smoke alarms. There was 3 of them in the house, but none of them were working.
None of them?
I actually had smoke alarms in the fire appliance, and we did actually fit them the same night, because we couldn't leave that house with no working smoke alarm.
Well, here we are on the 1st of October, and I've been reading stuff about, apparently there's a thing called Sober for October. Forget that one for now. Do it if you want to. But let's get the smoke alarms in, the masks on, and let's be very careful about who comes to the door and who is online with this. Eleanor, Mark, Ian, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Very good advice there indeed, I think. Well, now we're going to do something that is really quite different. I know that you know this person. This is a Cork woman, but this is somebody who has actually sung with the big names like Chris Christopherson and Nancy Griffith. And this woman loves to go for a walk on the beach. And I think you should be doing that too, if you can at all, if it's safe and if it's close by. Because as you'll know, there's a lovely beach at Barley Cove in West Cork. And this is where our singer, songwriter, performer went to and got her inspiration. The Beach is the name of the song. And the name of the woman is Fiona Kennedy.
Get your gear and we'll go together. Roll it up and we're on our way. The sun is warm and it's lovely weather. We've got the time we can spend all day. Heard a voice, it was you were singing, playing songs to the stars and sun. On the rocks with the white waves swimming. All those days, they were so much fun. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Never knew what we had was slipping, like the sand washing out to sea. Crystal water and a white knife slit me. I didn't feel it, does it have to be? Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Still feel the light through the canvas in a tent, so safe, so warm. But something stopped in the night and found us. It's so sad we lost it all. So sad we lost it all. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. To the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Going to the beach, and we're going to the beach, let's go. Let's go.
And that was the lovely Fiona Kennedy performing The Beach and accompanied by Billy Kennedy. No relation, but also a well-known Cork songwriter and singer as well. Now, in this panel, we're going to look at reaching out and coping with lockdown. We're talking once more about positive coping strategies that can help you. We're actually going to two older people as well, and they don't mind being called older. What's the point? Why would we even bother to worry about that? And we've also got information on Cork County Council age-friendly services and support services. Our speakers are Niall Healy, who's Director of Services of Cork County Council and also Chair of Age Friendly Alliance. We have Liz Maddox, Chair of Cork County Council Older People's Council, and Liz Downs, who's the Vice Chair of Cork County Older People's Council. And needless to say, you're all very welcome. And I'm so delighted and relieved that here we have women who don't mind saying they're older. Liz, I believe you're going to tell us how old you are.
I am 71 years.
Woohoo!
My body is 71, but my mind is 21.
That's a very, very naughty mind.
Yes.
You're some girl.
Yeah.
Have manners. Well, we're not going to talk about such things today, although, of course, I'm sure they do matter. Tell me exactly what you do with this council for older people.
Well, we have a care programme in place at the moment, and we bring that programme back into our communities. And the care programme, it goes C-A-R-E. Care is for to consider, A is to assist, R is to respect, and E is to empathise. And all of that means to the business people and to the community in general, that to look after the older people when they go out in the community after cocooning.
Well, wait now. The cocooning is finished. You had to cocoon.
I was cocooning for, I suppose, until the guidelines said that I could go out.
How did you find it?
I found it very good in the sense. Now, initially, I didn't like it because I work 14 hours a week in Tesco. So I was used to facilitating and meeting people at all times. So the next thing here I was sitting at home, twirling my thumbs, and I thought, how is this going to work?
And so many people watching this today were in the same position. And we're hoping now that when we go, and if we go, and we don't know, if we go to another stage, that hopefully that won't happen.
No.
What advice do you have to give, though, for people who want to be careful and stay at home? Not cocooning, but just being careful.
Well, I think, you have to stay with the normal routine that you had beforehand. Because we're in a new world now and we have to face it. So I think what's very important for some people who may feel very isolated or who may be living alone, just make a diary of your everyday routine. Keep track of what you're doing and even write down everything about yourself, about when you were going to school, when you left school, when you went out in the workplace, and have all of that ready for your grandchildren, because it's important that the grandchildren know how you did at the time of COVID-19. And they can look back at years and say, well, my nana did this and my nana did that. And I think that's very important.
So a daily diary of how they're actually feeling. It's really about feelings and also activities, is that
Exactly. It's about how they're feeling, and also give themselves a rota. Like get up in the morning, like I get up in the morning now, and the first thing I do is wash myself and put on a bit of perfume and maybe put on a bit of jewellery. Keep to the basics that you normally would have done. And don't have anything different. And that would cheer you up in itself. Then look out the window and say, oh, thank God I'm alive today.
Well, you know what? That's a very important one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we take it for granted. Sometimes we wake up and we think...
Yeah.
And also, by the way, I should have said maybe, I've been asked to join in the chat with you today. Yeah. I think it's so important. It's what I call gratitude.
Yeah.
That you get up in the morning and you say, the first thing I'm going to be grateful for today is my breath.
Exactly.
Hey ho, I'm alive.
Exactly. And
how wonderful that is.
Yeah, and I think as well, what COVID did for me was I took stance of where I am today. Sometimes we go through life so quickly and, we're in a busy world that we just don't stop and think and thank God for everything we have.
Well, I think that's a very positive thing to do. Thanking God. And if you don't believe in God, I always say thank the universe.
Exactly.
And if you think the universe has no power, just thank anyway. Because it's a nice feeling, that softness in your heart to feel grateful.
Exactly,
Niall,
and feel happy about it.
Feel happy about it if you can. Not easy for everybody.
No.
Niall, chair of the Age Friendly Alliance. What is that?
BV, it's a group that was formed a number of years ago, and it brings together all of the key stakeholders that would have, I suppose, a remit in terms of delivering research, delivering public services. So in practical terms, it's a group of about 15 people, which include representatives from the Older People's Council, but also from stakeholders that deliver public services. So, for example, the HSE, a number of different representatives from the HSE, Bus Éireann, Cork Institute of Technology, UCC. There's a range of different voices around the table. And
so are you sort of in between, do I understand it right? In between, say, if Cork County Council are going to design and plan some new houses, maybe for social housing or whatever it might be, do you go in there into the middle and say, well, I've been talking to the older people and I know this is what they want?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key part of it. It's about, I suppose, first of all, listening to the voice of the older person, understanding it, understanding the impact of various different issues that might be important, and then trying to, I suppose, redesign our policy. Because obviously as a local authority we develop policies in relation to planning, in relation to housing, in relation to environment, but we can do that now with the voice of the older person being given prominence. And indeed, as we follow through in that as a local authority, how we deliver our own services changes then as well, because we can accommodate the issues that are identified by the older person.
And of all the voices, excuse me, of all the voices that you're representing, is there one or two, perhaps in particular, that needs a lot more attention than the others, do you find?
I suppose, it's very, easy to identify what are the common issues, and we're very conscious of our role as a local authority in providing services that are accessible to all. And as we know, the whole age demographic in the world around us is changing, and we know that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, we're going to have a lot more people aged over 65. So it's time to plan for that now. So we're planning for that through policy, and we're planning for it in terms of how we deliver.
Let's just transfer all that very important knowledge into a practical sphere. If we take transport, for example, what sort of thing do you do in the transport field?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately it's the Bus Éireann would be a key player in that regard, and Bus Éireann are represented on our age-friendly alliance. So we've, I suppose, been listening to concerns maybe in relation to how footpaths are designed, in relation to how seating at bus stops is designed, and accessibility in terms of the transport infrastructure itself.
And accessibility there, let's not take that for granted, because I found, for example, if I order a taxi and it calls to pick me up, and it's one of those big Jeeps, are they called 4x2s? My God, trying to get up, to get in. And they have no sympathy much, I suppose. Do you look at practical things
These are practical issues, yeah, and we will look at all of those issues. Some are within our direct scope as a local authority to respond to.
Yeah.
And, examples would be recently now we've been discussing the whole issue of seating at bus stops, and if it's pitched too low, it may be far too low for people to get up comfortably from. There might be no arm supports to help in getting up.
And another thing, if you're a bigger girl or boy, you can't be doing with those little narrow seats. You just can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't accommodate the posterior.
Yeah. That's it, that's it.
I hope you look into those now.
Yeah, and we're looking into that. And, very simple measures that, over the last 2 years have been developed is pedestrian crossings. And, when you come to a pedestrian crossing or you press the traffic lights, it gives you a certain timing to cross the road. But very often that doesn't take into consideration the fact that some people have mobility challenges and it'll take them longer to cross. So we've reprogrammed our traffic lights and key pedestrian crossings in some of our towns to take that into account, and it's been very well received from the point of view of the older person.
Very, very practical issues there. And Liz, you're nodding in agreement. You're also Vice Chair of the Older People's Council.
Chair.
Which of those issues do you feel are very important ones from your own experience of being out and about in the community?
As Chair of Cork Older People's Council, first of all, we're a team. Liz and I, we work very well together, but not forgetting in the room is a team of people from every community. I have the opportunity as Chair to sit on the Alliance meetings. I have the opportunity with Cork County Council to be involved in the COVID-19 community support group at the moment. I think it's very important for the older person to be in the room as we started COVID-19, and there was the issues of cocooning. That meant that there was shopping, there was medication, there was Meals on Wheels. We literally had a very fast, everyone's locked in, but as far as the Older People's Council was concerned and Cork County Council,
Can we just go back there for a minute to the shopping one? Because I think at the start we were all very aware of the fact that the major supermarkets all encouraged us older folk to go at a certain time. I have never heard any reports that worked really well. How about you? Have you heard?
Well, it was a mission of mine not to set times with the feedback from the older people. Older people, they have their home helps in at between, say, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So if a supermarket says, well, if you're elderly, you can come and shop at 9, or you're a family carer, you can come and shop at 9. In practical terms, that is not feasible. So we had the community guards on board, we had the GAA on board, we had restaurants, and everybody kind of worked together to make sure that was easy.
What did the GAA do?
They delivered the Meals on Wheels in many areas, and the community guards are still on board, even in my own community today. They're still delivering Meals on Wheels, because even though we're at the stage cocooning is gone, for the elderly, you know, fair play to them, they have to be praised in the sense that they are probably the most sensible out there right now. They've already cocooned, and so to be back out, they're now taking care of themselves in ways that other people should be respecting and listening to them. You know, and we set up the care programme, as Liz said, care, we had C for care, A for assist, R for respect, and E for empathise. And that was when the elderly people started to come back out into the community to encourage the community to help them of a fear they had, because don't forget, they were cocooning.
I noticed myself just a few days ago in Cork City, and I would rarely go in if I don't have to, in truth. But, you know, it was all us older folks who had the masks on.
Yeah.
And the younger folks, I think they feel they're never going to die and they're never going to get sick. My God, can you imagine what that used to be like? Niall, just back to you for a moment. COVID-19 Response Forum and Helpline, what's that?
Bibi, that was an initiative that was set up in late March to ensure, I suppose, that there was coordination and integration of the response by all the various different agencies to the challenges presented by COVID-19. So the response forum comprised about 40 people, and included within that, again, are representatives from the Older Persons Council and the Age Friendly Alliance. So this was about understanding the impacts of COVID-19 and in the initial stages, you know, dealing with issues like, for example, the cocooning and the impact that that was having on the older person. And a range of responses were delivered. We've had some very innovative responses. For example, I think earlier on this morning, one of my colleagues mentioned the book delivery service for the housebound. And that's a service that was a direct response to COVID and has been extremely well received, because it allowed people to stay in their homes but to be entertained with research and reading material and so on.
Indeed, we were talking about that just earlier. Finally, Liz, if you had one piece of positivity to give to everybody who's watching us today, what would that one piece be? You've been through the cocooning, and look at you with a smile on your face, and putting on your jewellery and everything else, which is the way to go. One piece.
What I would suggest is that they keep track of everything they're doing. And, you know, write down everything. Because I think we're losing out on a lot of the old traditions. And the older people have those, like myself. You know, I remember reading Alice Taylor's book, Going Through the Fields.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I could relate to all that. But my children couldn't relate to all that. They wouldn't have known what happened at that time. So I think it's important. And at the moment, my friend and myself, we're doing an e-book. And it's about our guiding activities and how we, what we did years ago when we joined the Girl Guides. And,
fantastic.
And, you know, so that's what I would encourage people. Like,
I can see it in the future, your blockbuster coming up. My years in COVID-19 and how I survived them.
Well, I hope my grandchildren will do that, because, you know, it is important. And everybody has something to talk about. And, you know, everybody have a skill. And to bring that skill out while you're cocooning or while you're at home. And you know, take on a new skill as well. You know.
Okay, that sounds very positive. And I'm just going to add in one thing. I think connection is very important. Get on to FaceTime. Pick up the old-fashioned phone if necessary. And contact me on social media, and I will contact you back. I'm on all the platforms. Stay connected, I say.
Exactly, and I think this Zoom is brilliant for people my age as well and older.
There's no stopping you, girl.
There's no. So,
Liz, we have to leave it there. And Liz and Niall, thank you all so very much.
Thank you very much, Bibi. Thank you.
And now we go for a song. I hope you're in the mood for a song. This particular one was written and recorded by the Irish Weavers, one of Ireland's top ballad groups, and they're based in Cork. And it's sung today for you especially by Fiona.
In the year of 1990, the crack was over 90 from Castlehaven up to Mitchelstown. saw, don't mind your Flynns and Connors. It's Cork that got the honours. The year Cork went to win the double crown. Oh, the year Cork went to win the double crown. Tip and Kerry, their sorrows had to drown. The celebrating at the statue, it shocked poor Father Matthew. The year Cork went to win the double crown. For Tom Mulcahy stuck his hand up in the air. He feels the Galway halfbacks all to stare. And John Fitzgibbon is a dinger with a goal for every finger. We hope he'll do the same again next year. When the year Cork went to win the double crown, Tip and Kerry, their sorrows had to drown. The celebrating at the statue, it shocked poor Father Matthew. The year Cork went to win the double crown. And now we'll raise a glass to Niall Cahalane. With Coonahan he weathered every fight. And who could rival Larry, Teddy Mack and Davy Barry? And we'll see them all in Cork on Monday night. Well, the year Cork went to win the double crown. Tip and Kerry, their sorrows had to drown. The celebrating at the statue, it shocked poor Father Matthew. The year Cork went to win the double crown. Well, the year Cork went to win the double crown. Tip and Kerry, their sorrows had to drown. The celebrating at the statue, well, it shocked poor Father Matthew. The year Cork went to win the double crown.
What lovely music we're having here today. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Well, our next panel are going to discuss the very important matter of mind over matter. It's not an easy thing to achieve. It's about changing your mindset and in the process overcoming all sorts of anxieties and fear, and as ever, focusing on the positives. And our speakers on this panel are Niall O'Callaghan from Healthy Ireland. It's an initiative by Cork County Council, and Niall is the coordinator. Also, we have someone who, if you ever have known anything about GAA, here in Cork especially, you will have heard the name of Dr. Con Murphy, now a retired doctor, but a GAA coach and selector. And our third guest, Alice Taylor, the author. But Alice can't be with us in studio today because she's cocooning at home. She did, however, invite our cameras into her house. Here she is.
My name is Alice Taylor, and I'm going to read an extract from A Cocoon with a View, which I wrote during cocooning, really. And this is from the chapter Home Alone. Am I cocooning or self-isolating? In today's climate, both words mean the same thing. But it's amazing the different picture each word paints in our subconscious. Isolation brings to mind punishment by solitary confinement, whereas cocooning paints a picture of self-caring and nurturing. Cocooning comes from the natural world of butterflies and beehives, and the dictionary defines it as to envelop in a protective and comforting way. Wouldn't that terminology make anyone feel better? So maybe we who are advised to do so may choose to think of cocooning instead of isolating. Perception is everything. We have been parachuted into a scary new place, and we're all endeavouring not to be overwhelmed. But if we overthink things, that is exactly what will happen. Our thoughts could so easily overwhelm us. The coronavirus may attack our bodies, but if we let it invade our minds, it could destroy our sense of well-being, which could well make us paranoid. So we are involved in two battles, the physical and the mental. Now, having ascertained the correct amount of necessary information, I feel that an overload of unnecessary news could damage our sense of well-being. So maybe better not to immerse ourselves in a constant flow coronavirus news. Best to keep ourselves occupied doing selected projects as there is therapy in doing. Now, therapy in doing, while I was cocooning and still gardening, I found the garden was just wonderful. You're never finished in the garden, really. And in March, when we all had to go into cocooning or isolation, whatever you like to call it, I was so glad that the previous autumn I had planted lots of tulips, and then they were out in March and April, and when things were tough, they were my cheerleaders, really. And now that we're at the end of September into October again, I'm planting bulbs for next spring, when hopefully everything will be better, but it will be good to have them. And so during cocooning, I wrote a bit. I wrote this and I wrote other things, and I painted. No, I'm not a Monet, I can assure you, but I enjoy painting. And in a way, like if you're a knitter or do embroidery, I think this is a great time to kind of nurture our creativity, because our creativity is so good for us and it makes us feel so good within ourselves. So I think it's a time for maybe to write long letters to our friends, make telephone calls, keep in touch with our friends that way. So hopefully all this will pass and things will be well again. Good luck, everybody.
Alice Taylor, make you think about walking through the fields to school and all of that, wouldn't it? But for the moment, let us talk to our studio guest, Dr. Conn. You're retired. When did you retire?
The end of December, Bibi. I've been planning it for a number of years. So time was moving on, and I had a son who was able to take over my patients. So,
did you? Well, that was a wonderful bit of timing, if you ask me, all done neatly before COVID.
Well, some of them suggested I knew it was coming, but that's not true. But it was nice to be able to hand them over to someone I knew.
And how have you found this retirement and also the restrictions of the COVID times?
I found it difficult, to be honest with you.
Did you?
Yeah. I did an interview in the early days of COVID, and I said, people need to watch their mental health. Little did I know I was talking about myself.
Is that a fact?
I did get anxious and strained.
And is it okay to ask you, if it's not too personal, you're a medical person, you have all that science in your head and you have an understanding of it. What made you anxious?
Doesn't make much difference, really.
Really?
I missed my patients. I missed the routine of work. I missed being cocooned. I wasn't meeting anyone. So I went from being a real people person to meeting no one. So myself and my wife were cocooned at home with my 3 sons calling and waving in through the window. And it was a bit of a shock to the system, to say the least.
So I gather that from that experience you would say it's one thing to be a people person and to have a very active life in your job and retire. But then if you retire at the time of COVID, it's another layer, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I've met none of my patients since, apart from the only people I meet. A lot of the former Cork players have been very good contacting me to go for walks, which I find helpful. And
so is that one of the tactics you've used to help with the anxiety?
Yes.
To get out and walk. Can you tell us just a little more about that?
Yeah, I meet someone different most days. I go for a drive with my wife as well. I go for a walk with her as well. So I've been doing more walking than I used to. But I also missed out on the Cork hurling and football team training. We stopped training for a long time. And I missed that social contact as well. So I went from the sublime to the ridiculous in terms of numbers.
But how are you doing now?
Much better now.
Much better now.
Teams are back training. I'm meeting more people. I think we could be in for a shock on Friday, but fingers crossed it won't last long.
Fingers crossed, that's all we can do at the moment. Interesting, though, that you find the walking and the talking a very good combination.
Very good.
Walk and talk.
Yeah.
That's the mantra I'm going to take away from you.
Have to keep in touch with people.
And keep in touch as well.
Yeah.
Niall, what do you think about that? The physical exercise side.
Well, absolutely. There's lots of scientific data to show that physical activity can help lots of different aspects of our lives, and physical activity is one of the main pillars of the Healthy Ireland framework. And the main thing is that physical exercise literally can change the way you feel. So when we exercise, we get an increase in body chemicals such as endorphins and serotonin, and these are shown to help us even when we're not exercising. It can help us get some better sleep. It can even help support our immune system. So many different benefits to exercising.
And they're the happy hormones, aren't they, to us lay people?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
So you would absolutely advocate getting out there and doing some walking, but what if you're frail? What happens then?
Yeah, well, it's really just doing the right type of exercise for your ability and for your interests as well. It's really important to do something that you enjoy, because if you're doing something you're not enjoying, then you probably won't keep it up. So whatever you enjoy doing, keep doing that. And there are lots of different levels, for example.
Well, wait a minute. Hold it right there. You're going to solve a whole situations for me, because once, again, I've been asked to join in this discussion, not just ask the questions. Find the exercise you can enjoy. I have lived the last number of years of my life, since I stopped being a hotelier in India, on a sofa, studying and learning and writing and so enjoying myself. But of course, everybody, all the medics I know now are saying, come on, Baskin, get out and do a bit of exercise. I can't find any exercise I enjoy. What am I going to do?
Keep searching.
Can I tell you one of the things I found most helpful was Ray and O'Shea had a 15-minute slot on the Dahi and Mara show today on RTE1 in the afternoons. So for 15 minutes, Ray showed us what we should do. And I found it excellent. It was on every day. I'd love to have him back again.
That might be a good idea, but also we can find it online. We can find it on the RTE player, but also there would be other things that we can find
Yeah, that's
online.
what it was called. Ray and O'Shea.
All right.
O'Shea being Dahi, obviously.
Of course, Dahi, Kinta. Niall, I do a few kind of very ugly-looking squats and lunges indoors where I don't have an audience and nobody can see me. I mean, you want to see the cut of me. I'm just out of practice. It's years since I exercised. Are there any other little things you would recommend?
Well, there's so many different resources out there that are available, particularly the Cork Sports Partnership are doing remarkable work. They're an award-winning organisation, and they have some great resources online to their active communities initiatives. So that's a place I will definitely recommend people to go to, because it incorporates exercise for all ages.
Now, what about breathing? I'm the devil for doing these Indian-influenced breathing things, and I'm good at doing that. And I feel with the threat of COVID hanging over us, it's very good to do something that builds up resistance in your lungs. So I do a thing about every 5 days out of 7. You know, I don't like routine at all. And I would also say to anybody watching, if you want to take on something and you're not that pushed about it, don't say to yourself, I'm going to do it every day for 7 days. That's hell on wheels for me. Set yourself a nice cozy figure, like 5 out of 7. So 5 out of 7, I do pranayama, it's called. It's alternate nostril breathing. You can get it online again and you can check it out. What would you think about that one?
Absolutely. You know, there's so many different types of breathing techniques, and they're all beneficial, even when it comes to just trying to calm us down when we're coming up towards a stressful situation, or something good to do every day, and even doing it for a couple of minutes. Even something like just breathing a little bit deeper than we normally would. It just helps us to calm down the mind, and it's just good to get more oxygen into the body as well. Even like a simple box breath, just inhaling just through as normal, not alternative nostrils, just inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding that for 4 as well. Very simple box breath. To do that for 3 or 4 minutes has lots of benefits for lots of different people.
It does, and I do mine in the early morning. I think it's lovely to do it in the early morning when nature is at its best and you almost have this intimate relationship with nature. It's like you own the world because there's nobody else around. Well, you just feel that way. And I do it in the outdoors. I think that's a lovely thing to do as well. If it's raining, you know what? It's Ireland. It's going to rain. There's a yoke called an umbrella. Stop being so soft. Get out there. I'm telling myself as well, by the way. So, Dr. Conn, tell me now, on an average day, what do you do?
What do I do? I get up early.
What sort of time do you get up?
9 o'clock.
9?
Yeah.
I get up at 5. Get out of it.
I get up at 9, I read the Examiner.
Yeah.
Have breakfast, go for a drive, then I go for a walk.
At all the breakfast front, as a doctor, would you rate a good breakfast as being very important?
I would. It's very important you have something. Yeah. Doesn't have to be a full Irish or anything.
I was wondering, would it be? Would you have the old Irish, no?
I usually have tea and toast.
Tea and toast.
Simply.
Then after you go for the drive, you go for a walk?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your view on taking a nap during the day?
I suppose I see nothing wrong with it, but it's something I'm not able to do myself. You know, I'm probably watching more television than I've been used to.
That is a deathly trap.
Yeah.
And of course, I shouldn't be saying anything negative about television because I used to work in it. But, excuse me, it's all too easy to watch Come Down With Me, or would you watch Richard Attenborough?
I would, but I wouldn't watch anything scary.
Dr. Conn, you're getting woft in your retirement.
Has to be happy endings for me.
Happy ending. Oh, well, I would...
Or old matches.
Old matches you would enjoy so much, I'm sure. I would always go for the happy ending one before I go to bed. There is no way I would watch something spooky in the evening. Would you agree with that, Niall?
Absolutely. It's all about how it makes you feel, I suppose. You'll bring it on with you. You know, it could affect your night's sleep, in fact. So,
it does.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular tips for a good night's sleep?
Well, I think having a good sleep routine is really important, and trying to reduce the amount of blue screen like TV or phone activity leading up to bedtime is important, and having just the right environment as well. You know, some people prefer to have, you know, darkened rooms and it can be beneficial as well. So, and I think having the same routine every night can be very beneficial.
I'd like to add that I wouldn't watch all the programs on television about COVID.
You wouldn't watch, that's worth repeating, you wouldn't watch all the
I wouldn't
programs
recommend
about
it.
COVID.
I mean, I think people should be aware of what's going on, aware of how they're supposed to act, aware how things are changing. But if you watch everything that's on television, it'll just scare the life out of you.
Saturation point and scare the life out of you.
Yeah.
We don't need all that, do we, Niall, really?
No.
You know, I find if you discipline yourself to listen to the news maybe in the morning, once again in the evening, that's enough. What
Absolutely.
do you think, Niall?
I think if there's something we really need to know about, we'll find out pretty quickly.
Yes.
Or else we'll hear from a loved one what's really important. So absolutely, stay informed, but we don't need to be looking at it all day, every day.
And if you had to single out one particular activity, one thing to do, one mindset to have that will help everybody to get through these tough times, could you single out one thing, Niall?
I think for a very small thing, I think it goes back to your breathing, Bibi, just taking a deep breath. Especially at the moment, we may even see some of that news that we might be watching a little too much of, and we find ourselves getting into maybe a stress state. So just taking a deep breath can be very beneficial.
I'm hoping to do a little thing on social media starting next week. I haven't got it done yet, but a guided meditation. And I would teach a little bit of breathing just from my own experience. I'm not some huge, big medically qualified person. And I'm hoping that would work. Because I think, having lived in the Eastern world for 15 years, I learned that breathing is very, very much more important than we generally have recognized it to be here in the Western world. So I take on board what you're saying, and thank you for that, Niall. And Dr. Conn, no scary movies for you, dear. Just none at all. But thank you both very much indeed for coming in to us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Well, there we leave our panellists for today. I do hope you've enjoyed this time with us. We're not quite done yet, you know. We have another wonderful musical piece for you. It's called All of the Days, and it's the brand new single from Cork singer and songwriter Fiona Kennedy. Until we meet again, go Jéshiv Slán. Fiona.
All of the days, all of the nights, counting the hours, all of those times. I'm missing you every single day. A rush of blood to the head, they say. Time, precious time, is drifting away like a drip to a stream, to a strong rolling wave. Jump on board and sail into the sun. Let's change our course and let it run. And if all that time came back to us, would we be sure to use it well? If we could only see what could have been, my eyes can see it all. All of the days, all of the nights, all of the times we say goodbye. All of those long lost lonely days, please let it end someday. Nobody knows what the future may hold. Trust in me now, fortune favors the bold. I'm staying true to all our midnight dreams, the things we whisper before we fall asleep. And if all that time came back to us, would we be sure to use it well? If we could only see what could have been, my eyes can see it all. All of the days, all of the nights, all of the times we say goodbye. All of those long lost lonely days, please let it end someday. All of the days, all of the nights, all of the times we say goodbye. All of those long lost lonely days, please let it end someday.